Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to the GLF podcast. I have an amazing guest with me here today, Emily Hirsekorn of Hirsekorn Consulting. She is a leadership coach, a very high energy leadership coach. And whether you lead a business like your law firm, your family, or both, we all, I find it, need a coach. In fact, my business partner and I, we have multiple coaches for different aspects of our business and somewhat our lives. Emily, as I mentioned, is a very high energy coach who's been doing this for a long while. And she is an absolute natural. It's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Emily.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here.
So you are a recovered lawyer. You used to practice law, and then you realized that it was not your thing, and you found that perfect fit for what you do, for who you are, is helping others achieve better outcomes in life. What did the journey look like?
I think it's important to start in undergrad where I thought I wanted to become a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with a positive psychologist who defined hope theory, which is goals, developing strategies to achieve your goals, and having the motivation to actually make it happen. That is coaching. Okay, so at the time, coaching wasn't this huge thing. Nobody was talking about that. And when I was making a decision about graduate school, I made a very logical decision. I only consulted logic, didn't really think about what I really wanted to do or was passionate about. And I said, well, I could go get my PhD in psychology. That would be about 8 years and come out making 60,000, or I could go to law school for 3 years because I'm academic and I like to argue, and I could come out making 100,000. That was how I made my decision. Okay. So I like to say law was a little detour. Loved law school. Of course, practicing law is nothing like law school.
This is like 2005, right?
Oh, you're really testing me now.
Man.
So I graduated. So I went to law school in 2007.
2007. Okay. I remember that
Yes.
you landed your first cushy law firm job. I think it was the one and only during the Great Recession, and you were well paid for that job, right?
That's what I was going to say. I went to law school when things were fine. Then 2008 happened.
Okay.
My class was the most royally screwed. We'll just say that. So yes, I graduated in 2010. I think later I worked in law school administration and did the employment reporting. So I'm pretty sure we talked about 2010 was the worst year for employment outcomes. Not only that, I went to school in graduated in 2010. I went to school in Sacramento, moved down to San Diego, which is a tight market.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to live in San Diego.
Sure.
And at the time, they had 3 accredited law schools there. Really a tough spot to be in. And I'm a go-getter. Everything I do, I go above and beyond. And so I networked my ass off when I got down there, was making use of my alumni network, volunteered full time in a post-bar law clerk position. I remember people were like, why are you still here? Like, what else am I going to do? I'm trying to kill it in this unpaid job. And then, yes, I did have a great job with a mid-sized defense firm. Really, in my mind, it was that magical combination of work that could feel good, but also was paying the bills and could help me pay my law school loans off. The key is I was there for just a couple of years for a variety of reasons, but like you said, I'm now doing what I was meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I felt that. It felt off. It didn't feel right. I knew that there was a very different path for me. So I pretty quickly got into law school administration. I was working in career professional development, loved the work. However, everyone who goes to law school knows this. Your career advisor, we're serving the masses pretty superficially,
Sure.
right? So helping people get a job here and there, you see people maybe a couple times a year, that's it. And I was the alumni advisor as well. So in addition to the students I saw, I had these attorneys and they come back. They're miserable. They come back. They got laid off. I mean, it's such a common story. And so there was just this point where I'm like, I've got to be doing things differently. I wanted to keep doing similar work. And a friend of mine, she came to me and said, "You've got to look into coaching. I think this is what you've been looking for." And I realized, oh, I could help these folks with all of the things that are contributing to their stress and lack of fulfillment in meeting with them on a regular basis to really make a difference and working with fewer people at a time. That sounds right for me. So I knew I wanted to pursue coaching. This was 2020. I started my business in January, pre COVID, with the intention of getting the certification later. And then when COVID hit and we were all at home and weren't out of the house doing anything, I said, well, this is a good time to start a business and
Mm.
go full force.
Interesting. I love it that you found a career that's aligned with your passion and who you are. I find it, and it's a theory, I do not have hard data on this, but I find that in many professions, but I think it's probably more applicable to law because I know a ton of
Mm,
lawyers than to it. I know more lawyers than people in any other profession. I know thousands of lawyers. And I'm not talking to anyone specific right now, but here's what I think. Smart people tend to gravitate toward law. It's a smart profession. It's a
mm,
prestigious, smart profession, regardless of whether there is an alignment in their soul
right.
for that career or not. And many of them get into the profession, and there's a huge investment of time, energy, and money that goes into getting into that line of work. And then you make that commitment, and then you may not love what you do, just like you did, but you stick to it because you made the commitment. This is who I am. I
Right.
am a lawyer.
Right.
This is
Your
what I do.
identity.
This is my
Yeah.
identity now. Now, that is like the first fallacy that I see. And then there's another
Mm,
one, and it's taken it to another level. That is, I am a lawyer. I am smart. I am ambitious. I'm going to start my own firm. I know very little about business. I may not know anything about business, but I'm a good practitioner.
yes.
Other people have done it, thus I will do it too. And so
Yes.
there's a percentage of attorneys, and I think this data is probably very old now, 10, 15, 20 years. But I think American Bar Association did this study in conjunction with some group of psychologists 10, 15, 20 years ago, and they said that this profession drinks a lot.
Mm,
This profession has more depressed people than any other profession. I think the rates were just staggering. This is
yeah.
again like probably 2005-ish, give
I
or
know what you're
take.
talking about. Yeah.
And then when you look at, I look at so many small law firm owners, not a psychologist. I can't diagnose anyone with depression, and but I can tell like I'm a law firm owner not because I'm a business person in my soul, but because I thought it was the right thing to do. And here I am struggling with so many different facets of running a business. And I wish
And
I,
life.
in life, and I wish I didn't have to do this.
Uh huh.
And the reason why I say that, I am through and through a business guy. I love
Ah,
business.
yeah,
I can start, I think, any business, or I can buy any business and run it
yeah,
and have a good time with it. Because I love business. Like when I was a kid growing up, like my early teens, probably starting at like 11 or 12, I read books about business, fiction
wonderful.
and
Yes,
nonfiction, because I was like, this really fueled me. But for most others, I feel that that's not what law firm owners, many of them, that was not the dream. It was never the
right.
dream.
Right. And it's not a bad idea. It's a great idea if they are able to bring in business and they have the casework and of course have the skill set to do the work. They just need support with the business stuff. They just need support with the other side of it. And so I think there's the distinction between the folks who really excel and the ones who continue to struggle. Are they getting resourceful?
Hmm.
Are they going out and getting support? You and I both know, like you said, you're always hiring coaches, same,
Yep.
always, and for different things,
Yep.
different types. I usually have business consultants, and then I have my coach like myself, same training as me, who I consult when I have a big decision to make
Hmm.
or when shit hits the fan, like something feels big. I have someone else, in addition to the consultants telling me what to do, I have this other person who helps me figure it out for myself and make these decisions for myself. Very, very important. So I think that's the idea. And look, it's like being proactive versus waiting for things to really feel rock bottom. Which do you want to be? Those are, we've talked about this. There are two types of folks who seek out coaching. People who feel like it's really, really hard. They're in a really tough spot. It cannot go on any longer like this, almost desperate for help. And then folks who recognize, like we do, that this is just what you do to be successful. You have support,
Yeah.
you have resources from the beginning or early on.
Yeah. It's interesting. It did not come to me naturally to hire a coach. I don't recall the first time I hired a coach, but it must have been 10 years after I started my first business, and I struggled
Wow.
tremendously
Yeah.
through some of those years.
Yeah.
But once I got my first coach, I don't know how many coaches I've had in the last 15 years. Many. I've operated my own businesses now for nearly 24 years. So during the last 12, 15 years, that there have been quite a few coaches. And I hired wrong coaches for sure. And I hired
Yeah.
right coaches. And it's interesting. So uh, at the beginning of this recording, I mentioned that you're a very high energy coach. And I think that it's a good thing, right? Like you want a high energy coach, but you also want to like have your energy matched to the coach's energy, and you want to make sure that like that coach like brings you to that level of energy where you
Yeah.
want to be, because like high energy maybe is not for everyone. And you
Mm.
told me before we hit the record button that there's a whole energy management framework that you
Yes.
work with, and I loved it, and I want you to expand on that, because I think that whether you lead a business, a family, or both, your energy level always plays a major role, always plays a major role. And I never heard, or I never thought about energy management framework until you and I
Yes.
started this conversation like an hour ago. So
Yes.
explain
Well,
what that is
and
and how it works.
of course, and I'll tell you, over time, I've started to use the language performance because everyone gets performance,
Yep.
right? You want to perform at your best. Same idea.
Yep.
So that's really what we're talking about. How do you get the best outcomes? How do you have the most success? So, also important to note, um, it is my job as a coach to be aware of my client's energy and where they're at and what they need. So I do think that's really important. Honestly, I probably show up a little bit differently on a networking call, on a
Mm-hmm.
podcast, doing a presentation. It's a little bit more of a performance, right? When I'm in a coaching session, it is different because it's a partnership, it's back and forth. It's very important if they're dealing with some serious shit. I'm not over here like it's all rainbows and sunshine. That's toxic positivity, right?
Toxic
So
positivity. I love that. I'm going to use
just to
that.
clarify,
Mhm.
Yes, just to clarify. But yes, so in a nutshell, I have a couple of different energy management frameworks, really, really cool tools. The foundational one that I use with clients in the very beginning, I teach, they do an assessment to really think about how they're showing up and how they might be getting in their own way, and also external blocks. Like what else could be blocking your success? What's going on? So we're thinking about low energy is where we're really concerned about ourselves. We think we're screwing up. We're hard on ourselves. Very common with high achievers to beat themselves up over all the things. Also worrying about the future. But what if I fail? What if this doesn't work out? And if that's all we're thinking about, you know you've got to take risks as a new business owner. You've got to get some funding, right? It doesn't feel great. We wish we just could pay for everything in cash, but that's the
You take
reality.
risks every single day. If you operate your own
Yes,
business, you take risks
yes.
it's just a big part of it.
So you can see if you're risk averse and you're saying, but what if that doesn't work out? But what if there's no ROI? But what if you don't take the risk? You're not moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I managed that, I think, quite effectively. So I am very risk averse, but I've been a business owner operator for 24 years
Yes.
because whenever I tell myself, what if, I just think, yeah, what if? Yeah,
Yeah. What
I can
if?
totally fail. By the way, like there were times in my various businesses where I was on the brink of getting wiped out.
Yeah.
Never happened. But what if? What if it would have happened? Okay, it could have.
Yeah.
What if I make a mistake? I come prepared that I will make mistakes. Some of them are
Yes.
going to be high stakes mistakes. High stakes mistakes. They have happened many, many times.
Yeah. And if it's serious enough, we'll come up with a backup plan
Mm-hmm.
to make you feel more comfortable moving forward, right? I always acknowledge that. We have to be realistic too. It's not, oh, just do all the things and take all those risks and jump forward and don't worry. No, you got to pay your bills. I always tell people, I get it. Okay. So I'm also very realistic. And if you tell me you want to grow, but you're afraid to spend any money, we've got to have a different conversation, right? So, how can we make this happen and you feel comfortable doing it? So, we've got to clear out that low
No, no,
level worry.
no
Yeah,
way to
go
feel
ahead.
comfortable when you're putting a lot of money, whatever that a lot means to you, at risk. But I love the expression, scared money don't make no money.
Yeah.
It's the truth. I heard it from a person
Yeah.
very recently, actually, like a few weeks ago, who actually got scared of investing into growth. She told me scared money don't make no money, and then she was like, I'm scared. I get it.
Yeah.
That's why you are where you are and you've been here for many years.
And I just want to clarify, I think it's so important. You push yourself, you do the mindset work to take the risks to move forward, and planning is important. So I think sometimes we focus too much on one or the other.
Hmm.
Sometimes people only are focusing on mindset. That's all great, but then where's the action? We want to make sure action's supporting it, or the opposite, where we're just talking about action, but people feel so uncomfortable. We don't want you to feel uncomfortable to where it's, causing you stress. So that's important. Another way to think about this too is stress management. We want to make sure that they see the positivity in taking these risks, pushing their business forward, taking action, the positive possible outcomes. That can really help shift their mindset around it to get buy-in. Okay, so that's low, low, low. The next level, still
Sorry,
low
can I
energy, is,
pause you there for a
of
second? I just
course,
thought about
of
what you
course.
said. I hate feeling stressed, but I feel stressed most of the time, and I just find it to be such a big part of life. And
Hmm.
again, as a business owner operator, and I have a lot of mouths to feed. We have a fairly sizable company, over 90 employees. And my partner and I always tell that like we make that he and I make the biggest mistakes because we make those decisions that affect like everyone and everything,
Sure.
right? And we make investments into things that do not work. Like Well, that didn't work out. 18 months later, right? So I just find that I think if you're operating a business, and I understand that most of your clients are business owner operators, they're law firm owners, and everybody, I believe everybody who listens to this podcast is in that category. I think that just being very uncomfortable, being stressed out, taking action is super important. You just kind of have to accept it as part of it. Otherwise, your soul is not aligned with what you do. If you
You
operate a
just said
business,
something really important: acceptance.
acceptance, yeah.
So this is the idea. We can play semantics all day long. I think it's just a matter of semantics. When we're talking about stress, it's how you view the stress. So, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, accepting it, saying, I'm going to be a little uncomfortable when I do this. I know that doesn't mean I shouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's accepting it. That's the important piece. I'm not saying you're 100% all in, you're feeling great, you're flying high all day, every day. No, that's not realistic. But accepting these necessary parts that aren't so pretty, maybe, of running the business, so important. I completely agree with you. We just want to make sure it's manageable to where people can get through their day
Mm-hmm.
and feel pretty decent at the end of the day. When I talk about minimizing stress, I'm talking about the debilitating stuff
Mm-hmm.
and what really tends to hold people back from growing. That's problematic, and that's usually what people are looking to change.
But isn't what keeps people from growing inability to take action? Because growth requires action.
Yeah, and it's mindset related.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all one big thing.
Okay.
Absolutely. If they're crippled by fear
Yes.
and not taking
There's no
action,
action.
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What what percentage of people come to you who are actually like crippled by fear to the point where they do not take action?
I would say I don't want to put everyone into that boat of crippled by fear because I think that's very particular. But I'll say this.
Not crippled,
There
stuck,
are
stuck because of fear.
stuck.
Like
Yeah, that's a good word.
fears in the way of growing.
Yes, a lot of
A
people.
lot of people.
So, for example, I have folks who know that they're ready to start their own firm. I can tell they're ready. They're checking out all the numbers. They know how to have their own client base. They know they can do the work. But fear, there's just all these what ifs. Like it changes hard,
Yeah.
changes really hard for all of us, or for most of us. So there is a large percentage of folks who are in that boat. And we have to, again, mapping out a plan can help them feel more comfortable
Mm-hmm.
and make them see this could really happen. And we've got to do a lot of mindset work with that logistical work so that they get to a point where they can say, I'm ready. I'm going to do it.
The reason why I asked about like what percentage of people you think are like crippled by fear or that are stuck,
Mm,
do not take action because of fear. I think that a lot of listeners, people who watch this podcast, listen to this podcast, read the writings that I put out there, they see themselves in being this, like not taking action because of fear, procrastinating and thinking it's just procrastination, but really the root cause of procrastination is some sort of fear. And it could be low level
mm,
fear or high level fear, but just really, I'm not, I'm ready to start my law firm. I'm just not ready to pull the trigger yet.
yeah.
Where
And
does
you
that
put it
come
off.
from?
You put it
You
off.
put it off, right? I
Yeah.
am ready
Yeah.
to invest into growth, which is really like marketing and your
Right.
HR, but
Right.
just not today. After I settle this big case,
Yes.
after, after, and then there could be like years of
Yes.
after, and then you see like your friends, your competitors, your foes blowing past you, going 120 miles an hour, and you're like,
Yes.
ah, how? Why didn't I?
Yeah.
And then there could be
I
regret.
I love for folks to give themselves a timeline.
Hmm.
And I always say, we don't have to stick to it. You're just making this shit up,
Yeah,
but come up with some sort of timeline.
yeah.
When they say, "Oh, I think I'm going to do this or I want to do," Great. Let's just come up with a timeline, so we're checking in at that time. And you can even see, good for awareness. Maybe they don't even realize
Yeah,
they're putting it off because
yeah.
it's back in their
But I
minds,
think
right?
the problem with the self-imposed timelines is that we're all the CEOs of our lives. But what happens if you don't perform? You can't fire
That's
yourself.
my that's where the coach comes in.
But the coach
So
cannot fire. Well, you can fire the client,
no,
but
no, no, that's not what I mean. What I mean is in terms of accountability. So my job is to help people come up with their own goals, come up with their own strategies. I'm here as a thought partner. So I'll poke holes. I'll play devil's advocate. I'll share some thoughts, of course. But people hire me to hold their feet to the fire. Most people know that they're pushing things off. Most people know that they're not taking as much action as they would like to or as they need to be to really achieve their goals. And they tell me that a lot of times. Like, I want an accountability partner. I want you to push me. So just having the coaching sessions on the books, I always tell people, if you do the homework, whatever action item you said you were going to do, if you do it right before our call, great, it's done on time. Like, don't feel bad about that.
mhm,
Because people feel like, oh no, last minute, I put it off.
yeah,
I don't care, but you got it done. So I think that's really, really important function of coaching is for us to help them with accountability initially, but then ultimately figuring out how they can hold themselves accountable.
yeah. But nothing painful happens to them if they do not deliver on the timeline. But I have an idea. Does something
I don't
pain?
know how true that
All
is.
right. What happens that's really painful?
So that's the question that I would put on
I
them.
have I have a great idea for you.
Yeah.
And this idea comes from about 15 years ago. I have this friend. He and I were accountability buddies for
Yeah.
quite some
Great.
time, about a year or so. And we wanted not accomplishing certain goals within the time frame that we set to be incredibly painful. So the deal that he and I made, oh, this is 2011 election cycle. So 14 years ago, 13 something years ago. So he was staunch Democrat supporter, and I was on the other side. And so the deal that we made, that if he does not do what he said he would do, he is writing $1,000 check to the Republican Party. And if I do not accomplish what I said that I would do within the time
There you
frame,
go.
I will write $1,000 check to the DNC. It worked. Neither one of us wrote the check. So what I suggest that you do, you can take it up to a different level and just say, okay,
Yeah.
Mr. or Mrs. Client, you're going to write a check to DNC or RNC, whoever you
Yeah.
hate, for 10,000 bucks. You're going to sign it.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
hold on to the check until the date that you self-imposed this deadline for. If you don't, I'm mailing it. But now let's up the game and let's say it's not $1,000 anymore. It's now 10,000. Like, make it really painful. Oh,
Right,
I bet
right.
they will all deliver.
I'm certain they would. And a little different process on my end. Um,
So I just want to make it
I would,
painful.
well, so I think it's really important. Yes, I love these concrete physical things. I love it. And I think one of the outcomes from working with me is for people to be able to learn how to motivate themselves without that stuff. And so, a question I might ask someone, I just did this at a retreat, and there was one person in the room that thought this was really, really insightful. I said, what is the pain of not taking action?
Uh-huh.
And they really thought that through. And I want them to flesh it out. Like, how different, like you said, how different is their business going to look than their idea of success when they're looking around them, seeing what other folks are doing, but really fleshing it out. Like, how different are things going to be if you don't take action
Yeah.
this year, and flesh that out for the next 5 years, 10 years? And then they can really see the impact of taking action. That's what is so, so important for them in order to develop personally so that they can start recognizing how these daily decisions, these daily actions they're taking amount to really huge movement over time.
Yeah. You got to budget those things on your calendar.
Yes, I am huge with time budgets
Yeah.
and time blocking.
I think most people don't because it feels uncomfortable.
Well, and that's, I mean, I spend a lot of time with folks on scheduling,
Yeah.
on time blocking, on prioritizing tasks. It's incredible how people do not have task lists and do not have priority lists and are just getting things done as they come in. And I mean, for lawyers, most lawyers I know have email problems, right? Like just flooded inboxes.
Sure.
I can't empathize. I'm unique. I do not, thank God, until I joined the PTO at the school and got off of that really quickly. Too many emails. But most people have email problems. We have to get organized. We have to start these daily habits that are going to help us keep on top of things, because this is one of the biggest concerns that I hear. I just feel underwater. I feel like I'm always behind.
Hmm.
And you can't, of course, you can't perform at your best when all of this stuff is in the back of your mind. Like, you got to do this and you got to get this done. You got to get that done first.
Yeah.
So, scheduling, organizing, time management, huge function as well.
Yeah. And as you mentioned earlier, or maybe we talked about it before we hit the record button, you said that a lot of people come to you when they feel like something has to change. That
Yes.
feeling underwater, dissatisfied with the status quo in life and business or both. These are huge drivers, huge motivators for people to make the change. What's
Yes.
share a good story, like transformational story. Someone came to you with problem X and how you helped them solve it.
Yes. So, I like to think about the folks who were in a mismatched employment situation and moved on to another situation, whether they got a new job or started their own firm. I think it's really, really important to recognize. Sometimes I think my industry can come off like, change your mindset, everything is fine. I
Mm-hmm.
always say, no, 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 that's not always the
Mm-hmm.
case.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're in the wrong spot or you're doing the wrong thing. You and I both know that. We've made changes over the years, right? So I think that's a really, really important piece to say up front. And so I've helped several clients make a major shift, again, whether it was from a mismatch employment situation into a new job or starting their own firm or company. And it's interesting because that in itself is the initial goal.
Mm-hmm.
They need clarity. Who am I? What do I want? What are my strengths? How do I find that better fit job? We get there though, and then the goal changes.
Sure.
So all of the things we've been talking about become part of the new goal, just being able to perform at your best, grow with a positive growth mindset and not be constantly worried and fearful this thing isn't going to work. So we're doing that work as well. But also, we shift our focus to more of the leadership development, where we are working through a ton of different resources that basically outline everything that's important for highly conscious leadership. And these are topics like communication, emotional intelligence, relationship building, um, time management, work life balance. The idea there is long term success. And I
Mm-hmm.
always tell folks that my goal, I know you all can get that short term success, right? You could be powering through, struggling through something you hate, and you can do it short term. That's not my goal. My goal for everybody is sustainable success. So those are my favorite situations where I help someone through an initial transition, and then we keep going because they recognize the value of support in that long term goal. I want to be my very best. I want to lead. I also love when clients say that. I want to create a work environment that was not like that one I had in the past. how magical would that be? I want to create this space where people want to stay, where people feel like their ideas are heard.
Mm-hmm.
So we figure that piece out as well in terms of a firm's values and mission, and how to communicate with your team so that they feel welcome, valued, heard, and also promoted over time. How do we make sure that all of that good stuff is happening alongside your own personal fulfillment? Because for the folks that I work with, most of them are leaders at their core. A big piece of them, they want to help others achieve success. So we do some interesting kind of coach approach to leadership stuff too.
Super interesting. I love the piece that you just talked about, where once you reach a certain goal, like now the goal shifts and
Yes.
it can move in the same direction, just to a higher level.
Yep.
Just yesterday, I interviewed Brian Chase on this podcast. Brian is well into his late 50s now. He said every year I set different goals, new higher
Yes.
level goals. He is beyond successful.
Yes.
When I say beyond successful, I mean financially, family, like
Aspirational.
aspirational success kind of level, right?
Yeah.
Very, very, very multiple 8-figure verdicts kind of successful. Like doesn't need money, very comfortable in life. Late 50s, sets bigger goals every year.
Yeah.
Reads personal development books every year. I interviewed him. I
Yeah.
asked him like what fuels. He's like, I have to do this every year. I haven't figured like I don't know where the pinnacle is. I'm going to keep on moving. This is really good. I make larger charitable contributions. I am able to do more and more and more with this, and I can coach my team. And yeah, I'm like, that makes sense. The guy's in his late 50s. Warren Buffett is 94. He's got goals with a 30-year time horizon. That is highly unusual, but he does. He's 94. He's thinking 30 years out. Different goals. Works 7 days, 6 days a week, right? So that's very, very inspirational. And I listened to you, and I know Brian has a coach. I don't know if Warren Buffett has a coach. Maybe. I think his business partner, the late Charlie Munger, was definitely in the advisory role to him for 50 something years. So I think
He had people, we'll put it that way.
had people. And I think about just going back to the idea of having a coach, which I know a lot of people don't. If you're in a leadership role, again, and I think about leadership roles for most of us, if you own a law firm, if you own a business, even if you're solo and have no staff, that's a leadership
Yes.
role. You're leading yourself.
Yes.
And if you have a family, whether you're mom or dad, that's a leadership role. And I always think about like if a president of the country has a cabinet and they're all advising that person how to do things better, hopefully. And if you're an athlete, you have multiple coaches. Jeez,
Yes.
LeBron James, I don't know when you will be watching this podcast. This could be 20 years from now, and you don't know who LeBron James is. He has a rest coach. Like the guy has a rest coach, and you would wonder why one of the top NBA players of all time would need a rest coach. It's because he's now played 30% more games than he was expected to play. And when he was interviewed and asked, like, how do you do this? Like, you were supposed to expire a few years ago. And he said, oh, I have a rest coach. And because rest is really important to my performance. But if he didn't have a rest coach, he wouldn't know how to rest properly. It sounds insane, but it's the truth.
Yes. Well, and I'll tell you, one of the curricula that I use was originally developed for athletes, for performance for athletes.
Yeah.
And it was transformed into leadership curriculum, but it's the same idea to go through all of the different factors that impact your performance and stress and be really mindful about what changes should we make? What should we lean into? What should we pull back on?
Yeah. That makes so much sense. And going back to LeBron James example, I think average longevity of an NBA player is something like 3,000 games. He is well past 4,000 games.
Yeah.
Like his earnings per game are insane. And he could do this because he has a rest coach. He has a total of 28 or 26 coaches. So for every aspect of it, and my partner and I, we have our top business coach who, in the most recent conversation, which we had just a little over 48 hours ago, we had an in-person meeting with him, which was a lot more impactful. And that one coaching session went on for 4 hours. We had a lot of ground to cover. We're not shy investing money into coaches, the right ones. And he said that, oh, you need a coach here, 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 and there. So he wasn't selling himself as a coach for all of these things. He's like, I'm really good at this, but I'm not good at this, and this. And he's like, go get him.
So important. Yeah.
So important. So I'm kind of pitching the idea that if you're watching this, listening to this, reading this, and you do not have a coach who is helping you lead your organization or lead your family, reach out. Speaking of which,
Here we are. Yes, great.
what's a good way to connect with you, Emily?
LinkedIn, website. The website has all of my information. That's hirsekorncoaching.com. But LinkedIn is where I'm showing up regularly with my own marketing coaching support. I'm there with you, my friend. So, so valuable.
Good for you. Emily, thank you.
Thank you.